Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to part 2 of episode number 148 of the In a Crowded Room podcast, which this is going to be quite a doozy. I've been waiting to share this with you, as this was an incredible weekend. But before we get going, I first want to say thank you to all 64 of you that have signed up in just a little over a week as patrons of the In a Crowded Room Patreon page. That puts us at almost, we're closing in on the 50% mark of our initial goal of 200 patrons, which at that point, as you guys know, I plan on bringing on an editor to handle all the editing duties, which will allow us to release 6 new episodes per week at 6 p.m. each night. I'm just blown away by the support. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Patreon page, the link is in the description box below. For those of you that are members, for this specific episode, as promised, there will be additional photos and videos from this investigation that will be posted exclusively to Patreon. Also, just so you guys know, there's no tier system, so if you want to sign up to support the In a Crowded Room podcast through Patreon, you decide your level of support. To me, that seems the fairest way to do it. You name it, it's completely up to you. And across the board, man, I appreciate the support. And that means whether it's Patreon, just telling people about the podcast, liking, subscribing, clicking the bell, the whole drill. You guys are doing an amazing job, and it's super exciting. Now, in regard to this week's investigation at the Jefferson Hotel, part 1, as you guys heard, was me explaining what had happened during the first night of our weekend-long investigation. So we were getting ready to embark on our second night of investigating, okay? Now, before I go any further, I need to take you all the way back to the beginning and fill you in on a lot of details, and this will make sense later. When I first arrived at the Jefferson Hotel, I met Pam and Jeremy, the owners, and we went and had a dinner. And I found them both to be really cool. Very nice people, incredibly social. You could definitely see that Jeremy seemed to be the one that was more into the paranormal, and Pam was the one that was more kind of into running the business of the hotel. No, I had not yet been in the hotel, so I was just kind of listening to their stories, in which I asked Jeremy, how often do things happen here, like paranormally speaking? And he pretty much said, every day it's a paranormal playground. He explained they had bought the hotel a year ago and told me that he was an electrical engineer and he was into the paranormal and he was building different devices and selling them. And he finally came across one called the Periscope that did really well for him, and he decided to just go full-time into the world of paranormal gadgetry. That was going to be, his career, which first off I thought, man, that's awesome, dude. You were working, as an engineer, and you started doing this thing that you're passionate about, and it took over. That's like the American dream, right? So after dinner, they took us over, and they did this walkthrough. They were like, are you guys, awake enough to do this? And we're like, yeah, no, definitely. And I was, absolutely floored by this place. If there was no paranormal history, now remember, before they were the owners, this hotel had a long paranormal history. In fact, Justin Ross, my good friend who I'll talk about later, who helped me set up this event, he had been there before and had investigated there and had a lot of crazy experiences. So I was going into it thinking it was going to be like this kind of old, antique-y, kind of creepy hotel. And what I found was a place that it felt more like a fun house, like a museum. Because like I said, it is decorated with the most amazing things. Weird stuff, like just odd stuff from around the world. And like I said, every room they have themed. There's an oddities room, a mirrors room, a doll room, a railroad room. Like each room is themed, and the amount of stuff that's just jammed into this place is truly remarkable. In which I had just said to them, how did you compile all this stuff? Like, how did you just get all of this stuff? Because it honestly feels like like those museum fun houses. Like that's what it felt like. And they just said, we're collectors, and like every single day for the last year, we were out collecting, and we're basically putting this place together. Which, look, I started this podcast to be 100% honest with you guys. And my first initial honest thought was, where is the money coming from this? Because I'm telling you guys, I mean, these were not, cheap stuff. There are parts from like the movie set, The Haunting. He showed me this thing in his bedroom that was like this Chinese bed, he said. It had no nails. It all like slipped in. It was carved. And it was like a separate room that had bedding in it inside a room. And he was telling me how he bought it for $3,000, but it was appraised at $40,000, which I believe. There is no way I can describe to you how much stuff was in this place. I have a photo up right now if you guys look. This is just the main hallway. It doesn't even do it justice. Here's another photo right here of the doll room. Which again, it doesn't do it justice, but when you're there, it is like, man, this just feels like a museum, like a fun house. And my first thought was, like I said, where's the money coming from to do this? Because, Jefferson is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's a 3.5 hour drive from Dallas, Fort Worth. There's only 1,900 people in the town. It's like the 5th oldest town in Texas. So I'm kind of thinking, clearly all these hotels, are doing everything they can to just get people there just to stay. And I'm thinking that it would be difficult just to keep the doors open, much less compile all this stuff. And so I didn't come out and ask Jeremy like, hey, where's the money coming from? But, I did just kind of say, so, how did you get all this? And again, he just said it was basically just a lot of hard work and the hotel and his inventions. And he went back into his room where he showed me this room where he works on these things called a periscope. And I forget exactly how he described it, but it had something to do with like directional static electricity. And he sold these to the paranormal community. And he said something to me that I was like, wow, is that possible? And he said, yeah, I've sold, like over 10,000 of these. And the reason that kind of hit me as strange is because, I'm in the paranormal field and I've heard of just about every paranormal gadget you could dream of, I've heard of. And I had never seen what he was creating. He called it the periscope. And not just that, but I'm like, is there a paranormal community large enough to buy 10,000 of these? I mean, that would mean every person that I would know in the paranormal community would have to have, one or two of these things, and I don't know anybody that has one. So that was just kind of like, I mean, listen, I know how hard it is to sell 10,000 units of a paranormal movie, much less a very specialized niche thing for hardened investigators. So, to be honest, when he initially told me that, my gut instinct was to just not believe it. And I could be wrong. I want to put that out there right now. I don't know how many of these things he sold. Maybe there is a thing in the paranormal community called, this periscope that is the hottest thing in the world and is selling, 10,000 of them to every investigator out there, and I'm just behind the times. I don't know. So I was just like, that's kind of odd. But we were walking through the place, and I got to be honest, right now I am floored by what these guys accomplished, and I loved their story. I loved that they just went for it and bought this place. And they decided to do something completely unique with it and leaned into the paranormal side and were just able to compile all this incredible stuff. And we're going room to room, And we get down into this doll room, and it's creepy. There's this large porcelain female glass doll that's staring at the hallway, and I'm looking at her face like, oh my God, that's creepy. And then I look down at this little doll that's like sitting on the ground, and its head turns and looks directly at me, in which, I didn't let out a sound, but it was one of those things where I was just like in shock because I was like terrified. I'm like, what? I mean, I just didn't even move. And then I like looked at him, and he got a big smile, and he goes, oh yeah, no, I set that up where it does. So he created this. He like, again, the guy's an electronic engineer, right? So he made it where his head can move, and he was like, it's just a joke. It's just a, play with people. And I was like, dude, bad joke, man, because that thing scared the hell out of me. And then right after that, two doors open up behind me at the same time. They open up. That scared me. And I go, Jesus. And I look and I go, what the hell is that? And Pam looks back. And again, Pam's Jeremy's wife. And she goes, oh, that. I go, yeah, both the doors just opened. And she's like, oh, that's my children's room. And then she yells for her son, and she says, do you want to come out or something like that to him? And then he never sticks his head around the corner. He never said, there's no sound, nothing. And then the doors just go, shut again. So at the time I'm thinking, the little kid's probably just, messing around with us, or, or he's just nervous because new people are there and they live, on that floor. So the last thing that happens is, we're just talking about, their journey, his experiences, and he's telling us all kinds of stuff that he's experienced. And we're talking about, I told him how I really came across the place is Justin had told me about the place, Justin Ross, about, a couple years ago, back in 2019, we were considering booking an event there. And, it came back up again probably about 6 months ago, and at the same time, someone had sent me a video of Nuke's Top 5, and there was, these incredible pieces of evidence that were captured there, which we used in the trailer for the promotional trailer for this event. And so we were kind of talking about where those things happened. There was a shadow figure that, crossed this hallway. And there was what appeared to be an apparition in a photo that was taken, and these doors that opened up. So we kind of went over, that a little bit, not in great detail. And we went downstairs back to the lobby and went into what is known as their ballroom. He says, this is my ballroom, but right next to it is the nightclub. And again, the most insane decor you have ever seen. It feels like a fun house. You feel like you're in a different world. And again, none of it feels like a haunted house. It feels like I said, like a museum, like a fun house, like an oddities, almost like a Ripley's Believe It or Not type of vibe. And we go into his, quote, nightclub, and he's like, check this out. And he pulls his phone out. And turns out like the whole house is wired to his phone. And he was like, check out the lighting here. And he's just punching buttons on his phone, and the lighting's changing and doing like incredible stuff. And this is like on the level of the coolest like club you've ever been to. And he was like, this sound system I have is ridiculous. I'm like, really? And he was like, I mean, it is like big boy thumping, like it's insane. And I said, well, dude, let's hear it, man. Like, crank it up, dude. I'm a rocker, man. Let's do this. And he goes, you want to? And I go, yeah. And again, the whole thing is connected to his iPhone, and he starts playing AC/DC. And yeah, that sound system, again, rivaled anything that I've ever heard in like the biggest like nightclubs in Los Angeles. The bass in that thing, it would rattle your ribs out of your body. I mean, you can feel, the kick drum in your eyeballs, man. The guitar was just like a buzzsaw. Like, it was unbelievable. And again, I'm thinking in my head, this is easily a I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 sound system. I mean, it was just incredible. And I'm trying not to think in terms of money, right? Because it's just, money serves a purpose, man. It's how things move and happen. It creates freedom. I don't worship it though. Like, I don't have that connection with it. So I hate thinking about, things in terms of money. But I've just never seen anything like this because we're in this town that clearly struggles for mass amounts of tourism, right? When a town only has 1,900 people, it's not really growing. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, by the way, I loved Jefferson. I found it to be one of the coolest cities I've ever been in, too. I'm not sure why there's only 1,900 people there because all the buildings are like antique-y. The barbecue place that I went to eat lunch at was, I'm not kidding, the best barbecue I've ever had. The Jefferson is stunning. Everything about it is incredible. The neighborhood, all the buildings, everything about it. I mean, I loved everything about it. But, it's a very, very tiny, small town that is not easy to get to. And like I said, it's far away. So when I'm looking at all the stuff that they have, it's just impressive. And, I was just wondering how it all happened. So I told them my true feelings, which is I think that their story was more fascinating than, any kind of paranormal, story that I could hear. Just because I don't know who else can pull that off with what they've created. But he started telling me about how there's like tunnels beneath the building. There's tunnels beneath Jefferson. He said they were underground railroad tunnels. Also, the hotel is right next to the Excelsior Hotel, which is famous because Steven Spielberg had a major paranormal experience there. Now, what was really interesting is that Jeremy told me this story of, Steven Spielberg's experience. And you would think that being a hotel that is, sitting kitty corner from the Excelsior, that he would have an accurate story. And the story he told me was about how Spielberg saw this little girl and that caused him to get all freaked out and he left the hotel. But, I told him, I said, well, that's not the story, because I've been fortunate enough to actually work directly with Steven, and he told me the story and he told me what he saw. And it was a, skinny shadow man. And there were other things that happened to him in the hotel that freaked him out, but he was actually scouting locations for a different film. And then at 2 a.m., Spielberg got everybody out of the hotel and moved them all. And he was just, freaking out by it. But I didn't think much of it because, look, stories get passed down, it's like, who knows what's what, that's why I love history so much because usually, the legend that gets told is like the tree. But when you pare it all down, you get to the seed, right? The root, the real story. And I love finding that seed to the tree, But yeah, it was just an interesting night. And then he started talking to me about, where do we want the lights, the hotel, set for the investigations. And again, this is before anybody gets there. And I said, yeah, well, as dark as, you're comfortable with is what, we would want. And he says, okay, well, it's all on my phone here, so I can do it. And literally with a push of a button, he can bring every light in that hotel completely to darkness. Or he can control different rooms with it. And, he can have the lights be on in this hallway, but dark everywhere else. Lights be on in the ballroom, but dark everywhere else. So, this entire place is just wired to his phone, which I was like, it's kind of badass, man. I need to get my house to be wired to my phone and do all this stuff. But needless to say, an extremely interesting guy. Again, Pam was much more the business end of, the relationship. And you can tell, Again, I think awesome when you see kind of like a team. And that's what I got out of it is this, these guys are amazing because if they built all this in a year, that's an incredible story. And again, you really have to see the place to appreciate it. Okay, after the first night, which is what you heard in part one of this, you're hearing my excitement because we had some personal experiences. As you guys know, I heard something, it sounded like either a duffel bag or a body bag slide across the floor right as I was falling asleep. Can I prove it to anybody? Absolutely not. It's a personal experience. It's something I know that happened, but of course I cannot prove it. Justin Ross had an experience in which his IR light started moving when he was sleeping. There was an additional piece of that was weird too, because he had a big fan. If you look on the screen right now, you can see the footage of this fan here and the IR light moving, and then you see the fan, and then suddenly you're going to see the fan in a different position. And when I first looked at that footage, it looked like the fan moved because I couldn't hear the audio. All this is the camera ran its course, battery dies, he put in another battery, and he started recording again. Well, with according to him, without approaching the fan or touching or moving the fan was just now in a different position. Now, because they're two separate clips and we don't see the fan move on its own, it's inconclusive. And also because we didn't have a camera on the IR light to see what caused it to move. Again, this is inconclusive. Justin, it was a personal experience for him. He says there's no way that they could have touched that IR light from where they were sleeping. There's nothing that could have hit it. And he also says that he did not touch the fan, nor did he approach it. And look, there's probably maybe 5 people in the world that I would put my stamp of trust in. And, Justin's one of them. I don't believe for a second that he would fake anything. But having said that, you got to chalk this up as a personal experience because you don't have the evidence to prove what happened. But because I had my own personal experience and because I trust him, I know there's weird stuff going on. In addition, we had tons of attendees that had things happen. In room 19, there was knocking sounds. That was the room I said that totally geeked me out the whole time, every time I went down there. We had another attendee. I don't know if she's comfortable with me saying her name, but she had an experience in which she experienced what people would call sleep paralysis, but she also saw something and had like physical movement of like blankets and stuff. I'm telling you what, again, I wasn't there, so you have to take people on their word, and she was very convincing. And there were other things too. People heard little knocks. So there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of what I would call small things. But after reviewing Justin's footage, we concluded that personal experience and my stuff, personal experience. There was nothing major yet that we could prove to anyone. So we are getting ready to start the second night's investigation, in which I decide I want to go to the back of the hall of the second floor, which is where the footage that you saw, if you look at the screen right now, you'll see it. This is this shadowy person walking across the end of the hall, looks like a shadow man, into what would be room 19. So we started the investigation at about 10:30 p.m., in which I went to that spot by room 19. And I spent probably, 30, 40 minutes just investigating the entire area and trying to figure out what could have naturally occurred to create this shadow figure moving across the hallway. What kind of shadow could have been cast? Could anything have cast a shadow? And I was baffled. I was completely baffled. First off, it doesn't come out of a door. There's no door for it to come out of. It's just a wall. And I thought, from the angle and the footage, I thought that it walked into room 19, which is the room on the far left at the very end. And it doesn't. The door is actually up about 6 feet from where the shadow crosses. So it would literally walk from wall to wall. And after, a long period of time and trying everything imaginable, the conclusion is, at the end of the day, on my end, was, look, either this is very much, a legitimate, shadow person that was filmed, or the only way that it could have been created after looking at it, I can tell you right now, really talented animator could have done it in probably 10 minutes. But it looked pretty. Yeah, I mean, I was baffled by it. It was something that really kind of kept me up after the first night thinking about it as well. And again, I walked into room 19 in that same weird feeling. And I was in there with a couple of attendees, and I just said, what is it about this room that feels so weird? It's like there's something feng shui-ish about it that is weird. And I was walking around trying to figure out what it was, and I walked outside, and then I walked back inside 19 and walked outside in the hallway again and walked back inside, and I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? I walked back in the hallway, and I walked back in again, and I realized that the ceiling in room 19 is way higher than the hallway. Like, I mean, it's super high, or it appeared to be to me. I didn't get out a measuring tape or anything, but the attendees that were there agreed as well that the ceiling seems much higher than the hallway. And I don't know what that means per se, but I think that's why when I walked in the room, why it felt so weird. And there's some legend associated with room 19 that a young bride hung herself. But we found out later on that she actually, I believe, hung herself in a different room, but she hung herself from the bed, and this bed had been moved to different rooms until it finally wound up in room 19. And which they also have this glass case with this dress. Like I said, everything's very fun house-ish, So I was like, well, that's about it. And I'm do some calling out in the room. Nothing really happens. So we ended up going outside to have a cigarette for a while. And I can't remember how much time passed. But I went back in, and there was nobody, in the doll room. And I started taking pictures in the doll room. I can't remember even really why I did. I just kind of felt, that feeling of like, you should start documenting this. And there is something that I noticed in the room, and I didn't say anything because I thought maybe somebody did it, but the main doll that you guys see in the promotional graphic for part one of this doll had been facing towards the hallway the entire time. And when I walked back in the room, the doll was sideways. And I noticed that, but before I went out to have a cigarette, I noticed there was a group of people that were looking in that room. So I thought, well, somebody moved it. And, as it turns out, everybody starts talking about the fact that this doll is now sideways, and nobody in my group has any recollection whatsoever of moving it. And I have a tendency to believe that because, a lot of these knick-knacky things that he has around there, like I said, they seem antiquish. They seem very, very valuable. And this was a big, like, porcelain, like its arms were like some ceramic porcelain type of, it was just this was not a cheap thing. And it was after it was moved, I grabbed its arm to see how heavy it was. It'd be very heavy. This is not something you could just bump into and it would slide sideways. If you bumped into it, it would fall over. So someone literally had to grab it, pick it up, turn it sideways, and sit it down. And everybody's talking about the fact that they didn't do this. Well, as that's going on, unbeknownst to me, okay, while that's going on, at the same time that's happening, this is happening in room 19 with my friend Justin Ross, who had just gone in there after I had left. Watch this footage.
Yes.
That was in the room. All right. Should I come down the hall? Can you go? Oh, you.
Was that you?
That was not me.
Bro, dude, what the?
Alright, settle down. Sorry. No way. There's no way this is really happening.
Do it again.
Is there somebody in the cabinet? Is that
No,
what it
I
is?
checked already.
Bullshit.
Do it again.
I checked already.
Okay. For the record, the people that stay
Who
here
did that?
That was him.
That was him.
Okay.
said they were getting knockings from about 4 p.m. till 10. And then it kind of stopped, and that's when they left.
So as you can see, that's some pretty mind-blowing, knocking. It's mocking what he's doing. It's intelligent response. It's hard. It's loud. And at the same time, Justin is texting my phone saying, "Get down here now. Where are you? You have to come experience this." So I look down on my phone. I get his text, says, "Get down here to room 19 now." And I come around the corner, and Justin's eyes are big, and I'm like, "What's going on?" He was like, "Dude, there's insane knocking going on here, and it's intelligently responding. We've never seen anything like it." I'm telling you, like, they all look like they are shocked. Like I've never seen Justin look this way. Kevin's looking at me just going, "Dude," like he's just shaking his head like, "What is going on?" So, right away they start like, "Can you knock, for Chad?" And I stand there for a few seconds and it's quiet. And right when I go to sit down, this is what happened.
Fuck off. I swear to God, dude, I'm telling you.
Dude, it's been doing that for
It was
5
louder
minutes.
earlier. It was louder.
Fuck off.
Put your hand on the wall.
You
Kevin.
can feel it.
You can feel it.
I want to know definitively that you are. I need to hear loud knocking. I want to know for sure it's you.
Let's all go. Let's all go down this way.
Whoa. Whoa. Right here.
Hey, can I see your light and then y'all can continue going?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll bring that to you.
Do it again. Nice and loud. Do it again. Oh, straight above me. Yeah. So you see my response saying, fuck off, because this is incredibly loud. I mean, you can feel like walls shaking, and it's coming from the ceiling, okay? And it ends up happening a couple more times. I was in the room probably 20 minutes. I'm not going to roll all 20 minutes of footage, but it definitely happens several more times, 2 or 3 more times. And eventually, Justin leaves the room. And I didn't know why he left, but he left. And I was still sitting there trying to have this happen again so I could pinpoint it. And I'm hearing just weird sounds in the walls. How could I describe it? Almost like settling, like slight little cracking sounds. And then it finally happens again. And I am just like, what is going on? And I'm sitting in there probably a good, like I said, another 20, 30 minutes just trying to figure out what is happening. I have not heard knocking this loud and this responsive since I was like 13 years old, 12 years old, like in my house in Persia. And that's a demonic case. And there's nothing about this place that rings demonic. Nothing. Again, it seems more like a fun house than it does a haunted house. So finally I get up and a good, like I said, half hour passes. It's getting late at this point. It's probably almost, 1:30. And I go and I sit outside and I'm completely alone at this point. And everybody is kind of like, talking and running around, and different groups are forming, and everybody, those who were there are talking about what they experienced, and it was all recorded, so people are sharing videos. And I'm sitting out there alone, and around the corner, Justin, Ross, and Bob come around the corner. Bob's like family. Bob witnessed all of this as well as it happened. And, Justin sits down and I say to him, I say, Justin, I haven't heard knocking like that since I was like a teen, like 13 years old, man, like in my house in Persia. Like, and I say to him, that was like a demonic case. Like something's weird, man. Like something's weird. And right away, he and Bob start telling me a story. But first, Bob says right away, no, dude, somebody had to be up in that roof. He was like, they had to be in the ceiling. He was like, that was, a fist against, a fist against the ceiling. Like if someone was hitting back, it sounded the same exact way. And I looked at him and I said, no, dude, I felt the same way. And, Justin Ross just, started saying the same thing that, it sounded like a person. And I said, we started talking about whether or not that is possible. And look, it is possible. There's definitely, you can have strikes like that. They are possible. It's just the nature of it. You had to be in there to hear it and to feel it. It really did sound like someone was up there. Well, Bob and Justin begin to tell me a story that blows my mind. While I was sitting down in the room, just literally trying to wrap my mind around what happened, there is a room in there called the disappointments room. And it's in the attic. You got to pull down these stairs and you go up and it's super tiny. You got to like squeeze yourself through it and get back. I'm just too big for it. And it's called a disappointments room because basically if you did things wrong or kids did things wrong back in the day, they would take them up in these rooms and they'd have to sit and basically contemplate what they did. And it was like an isolation chamber basically. And they start telling me that while I was back sitting in the room, they are climbing up into this disappointment room. And there's a way to get further past the room, but it's a tiny, tiny area that a smaller person would have to fit through. Well, the owner, Jeremy, is very small guy. And basically, Justin Ross gets up there and he says he looked down to the area that would have been directly above room 19. And he said he saw a black mass, not a person. And I asked him again, are you sure it wasn't a person? He said, well, it's so dark. He was like, I just saw something blackish and it moved. And I guess when it moved, Justin screamed, look, I see you, motherfucker. I'm coming to get you. I'm going to drag you out of there. And Bob said that he was like yelling. And Justin's a big, intimidating guy. And right as that happened, Jeremy showed up. And this story's odd. We had some attendees that were outside and across the street. And one of them ran into like a hydrant, just like was not paying attention and just ran into a hydrant and hit it. And Bob said that Jeremy, the owner, first he told Justin, to come back down out of there, that he was, worried about him, getting stuck or something like that. I might have that detail wrong. But, Justin basically said, no, there's someone up here, man. There's someone like, doing stuff, And all of a sudden, Jeremy said, you guys got to come now. There's been a terrible medical emergency. One of your attendees just face planted outside and they're hurt really bad. You got to go now. You got to go now. And so Bob, of course, and Justin hear this, and our attendees come before anything. And they said, Jeremy's like, saying now, like it's a medical emergency. She's hurt, and all this stuff. So they all come out of that area, the disappointment room, and they go running downstairs, and there's nothing. There's no one that face planted. No one was injured. No one called and said there was a medical emergency. And I'm like, Bob, what's that about? And he says, I don't know, but the second he said that, everybody got out of the attic. We all ran downstairs outside. And I'm like, this all happened when I was in the room? And he was like, yeah, you were just sitting down there. And I'm like, whoa, man, like what? And Bob goes, the thing that got me is that, he told Justin to get out of there. He didn't. So the way to get everybody out is to say there's some kind of medical emergency. You got to come. And I'm sitting here going, man, God, this is going to a place that I don't like right now. And I'm like, man, and I start thinking, through my head about all the different stuff that I've seen. The fact that everything is wired to his phone, Jeremy, and he can control everything in there, that he's an engineer, that he's already, wired this doll's head to move when I first walked in. And, these strikes in the room, they are not typical knocking sounds that you hear in paranormal cases. For one, the knocking sounds that I've heard, during investigations often seem like they come from everywhere. Like they're almost omnidirectional. Like as far as if there's 5 people in the room, 5 different people will feel as though they came from 5 different locations. This didn't seem that way. It seemed like somebody was striking, was taking their hand or fist and striking in return, as far as the knock goes. And so we're all sitting there, and I'm like, how wired is this place? Are we thinking that this place could be a fun house? That this could be wired to do stuff like this? That there's, different locations, trap doors, hidden places to do stuff? And they're sitting there, and, Kevin, Officer Vodka is sitting there, and, Bob and Justin, they're all talking about it. And they decide basically, they're going to go back up into the disappointment room. They do, and this time, Kevin gets all the way back to the area above room 19, and basically he stands up, and there's a metal door that opens up and goes straight to the roof. He was unable to see if there was other ones, but if there was other ones up there, you can go from room to room, via the roof. And we're sitting around talking about this potential. And I guess at some point, basically, Justin had said to the owner, look, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. I brought Chad in here. If I find out this is all like some kind of game to discredit him or make people look stupid, that ain't cool. Now, I want to be very, very clear when I say this. You can go down the rabbit hole the other direction too, right? You can go down the rabbit hole as a believer, and you can go down the rabbit hole as a conspiracy theorist as well. I didn't feel like that was the case, like he was trying to do anything malicious or anything like that. But the things got weirder and weirder as the night went on. So I go outside, and we're all talking about this, and all of a sudden I see this guy that walks from under where we're at, almost like he came out the front door or something, and he's kind of moving across the street slowly. And I don't think he knew that I was up there above, because at that point when he came out, we had kind of reached a break in our conversation. It was silent. And he looks, and we lock eyes, and he sees that I see him. And in the middle of the street, he just kind of stands there and he goes, hey. I go, hey man, what are you doing? Because I know it looks like he just came from the hotel. And I haven't seen this guy whatsoever. And he looks at me and he goes, so are you like the ghost guy? And I go, well, I'm a filmmaker. I'm hosting a paranormal event. And he goes, but you got like a ghost crew, like a ghost team, and I was like, yeah, I suppose. And he goes, okay, yeah. He goes, what's the number to the door? Is it still 2116? The main door there has a push code that you have to push to be let in. And I look at him and I go, I don't know, man. And he goes, is Pam and Jeremy, they're here still? And I'm like, well, yeah, they live here, man. And he goes, yeah, what's that code though, man, to get in? And I go, listen, dude, I can't tell you the code. If you don't know the code, I can't tell you the code. And he goes, oh. And he's standing there, and he just looks nervous as hell. And he goes, so you think, Pam and Jeremy are up? And I'm like, I don't know, probably. Why don't you give them a call if you know them? And he goes, okay. Yeah, I think I'll do that. And I go, okay. And he's just staring at me, and I'm just staring at him. And he stands still for like 5 seconds and stares at me. And he turns and just starts sprinting up the hill. Sprinting. Full speed. It's like 3 a.m. Sprinting. A few minutes later, we see him in a truck coming down the hill, no headlights on, and he's swerving all over the place. All over the place. And he gets to the hotel right where we're at, and he takes a left. And again, no lights on. No lights on at all. And he's driving slower, but still swerving. And he just keeps going until he gets like 2 or 3 blocks away, and he takes a right, and we don't see him again. And I'm sitting there, and Bob goes, what the fuck was that? And I'm like, dude, I have no idea. And Bob goes, no, seriously, what the fuck was that? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, where'd he come from? I'm like, I don't know. And Justin's like, dude, it's like 3 a.m. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Was that not weird as hell? And Bob was like, was he here the whole time and you just caught him leaving? And I'm like, dude, it seemed that way, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like, oh my God. So we're all sitting around there, and I'm just like, just completely just mind boggled by everything that's happening. So I needed to step away for a minute and just really think about this. So I literally went to the other side of the metal area, and there were other people that were out there, and we kind of started talking about what they experienced and all this stuff. And I went back, and this is where I'm at with this, guys. We didn't have much time to really do much. This was all unfolding like a movie after this happened. But this is what I would say after being as fair as I can be about all of it. I said this to Bob too. I said, Bob, if this was a case to find out if the Jefferson Hotel is more of a fun house than a haunted house, if someone brought me the case, and I was the grand jury, based on circumstantial evidence, you might be tempted to indict them. I go, but if we're in a court of law, there's nothing, absolutely nothing that we can prove. We don't know who moved the glass doll. We don't know. So we can't say anybody did it. When we were in the room the striking was going on, we heard, knocking. We heard intelligent response. This happens in haunted locations. Was it louder than anything I've experienced, from the age of 13 on? Yes, it was. Did it seem like someone was up there knocking and doing it? Yeah, it was weird. Yeah. When Justin went up there and looked back, he didn't see a person. He said, I saw a black mass. And he said it moved. And I'm like, are you sure it wasn't a person? He said, I can't say it was a person. So he didn't see a person. All these things that we have that don't add up, everything's wired to his phone. There's nothing illegal against that. There's nothing to, say that, there's any contraptions built in there. There's no proof of anything like that. We didn't find a contraption. The only thing that we found that was legitimate, done on purpose, was the doll head, which he told me about. The doll head that moved. He told me about that. The guy that I locked eyes with at the end of the night that ran away and drove his truck up, don't know what it was. Didn't get a chance to talk to Jeremy or Pam about it. So at the end of the day, we have absolutely no proof. No proof. Absolutely no proof that anything was faked. Was it weird that Jeremy would yell, there's a medical emergency, she's hurt bad, she face planted, get down here, and then nobody's hurt whatsoever? Super strange. Super strange. Has he sold 10,000 of these things that I've never heard of that I guess are all the rage in the paranormal community? maybe. I don't know. I just looked at Bob and I just said, we have absolutely nothing that we can prove whatsoever. So it could be that the place is crazy haunted, and that because we're skeptical by nature, sometimes when big things happen, they're so big that you think there has to be an explanation, that it can't just be what it is. Now, there's nothing wrong with questioning things. We were brought there to investigate. They knew that's what we were going to do. That's what I did. That's what I'm doing right now. That's why I'm sharing this with you. But at the end of the day, off the limited time that I was there, the facts are, I have absolutely no proof that anything was intentionally faked. I have no proof. I have personal experiences that I believe were very odd. We have a history of a place being extremely haunted. And, we had events occur that we believed were bizarre. So, what's my ultimate take on the place now that I'm gone? I think it's a massive, massive mystery. And I urge all of you to go there and to check it out for yourself. See what you can find, what you can experience. But, it's just a big mystery to me. It's a big mystery. There's something very, very, very strange about the Jefferson Hotel. Maybe this is exactly what he wants, because this stuff definitely separates the Jefferson from any other, haunted location, because it's got an even better story and a bigger mystery to it. So I would, love to go back there and really try to figure it out. Again, I don't know if this will piss them off or not. Jeremy and Pam, I hope it doesn't. I found you both to be very impressive people, and I was impressed by the whole place. But we were brought there to investigate, and my investigation, along with my teams, took me down a road where I think that there is, certainly some residual stuff going on in the realm of it being haunted, but I'm just not sure. It would take more time. But I just want to be clear that I am not saying, in any factual capacity whatsoever, I am not saying that Jeremy faked stuff, or that it's set up to fake stuff. We have no proof of that, and for anybody to say that would be wrong. Having said that, I want to know what you think. Let me know exactly what you think in the comments below, because this is very much a real life mystery that unfolded like a movie, man. I wish we had a film crew there the entire time, as it was wild, man. It was totally wild. So I want to thank Jeremy and Pam for allowing us to come there. It was an incredible time. I will never forget it. And I urge everybody to go there and let me know what your experience is. And again, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I will get back to you. Also, again, there's going to be more video, more photos that are released on the In a Crowded Room Patreon page. If you want to support us there, the link is in the description box below. Thank you all for listening to this episode, and I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.